The information expressed in the following podcast is intended for educational purposes only and was created by and belongs solely to Believe Limited and the Flow podcast and does not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Please speak to your healthcare provider before making any medical decisions.
Hi, I'm Jessica. Welcome to Flow. I'm here like every month with Sarah Watson, sex therapist, and this month in studio we have Charlene Modeste. We're going to get into it, but first we all want to know, how's your flow? Welcome once again to Flow. We always start off our episodes with a quick check-in to normalize the reality of menstruation with sharing of where we are in our cycles and our flows. I am ovulating. I can feel it. I'm a little more tired. I don't feel any specific localized pain, but I do feel like the overall energetic moment of it. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Mm-hmm. How about you, Sarah?
I too am ovulating. Wild. What? I know. It's so crazy.
Do you have vertigo this month?
No, thank God.
Okay.
I've been watching that while waiting for it and then realized, oh, I'm ovulating. So it's not happening, which is great. Hope it doesn't happen again now because that was weird for 2 months. And it's my right ovary. She's saying hello and wants to get out of my body. And she's crawling her way out. In fact, I am also fatigued, lay down for like 10 minutes before this podcast on my office floor. Because I'm just like, I'm just tired.
Yeah. Does that recharge? Does that do it for you?
No.
Okay. Honesty counts.
Yeah. I just, it's like, just lay down for a few minutes. So we'll make it though, for sure, as we always do.
Well, we're grateful to be in the reality of whatever flow we're feeling.
Yes.
The fatigue is real. Charlene, where are you? How are you feeling in your flow?
I am feeling very mysterious. I had an anomaly last cycle, so I'm not quite sure where I am. Things were very much off. So
building a mystery where we're going to get into all that into our convo about what has been going on with your flow, sharing a wild journey of healing as well as struggle. We're going to get after it after this quick word from our sponsor.
This ad is brought to you by Von Vendi, Von Willebrand Factor Recombinant.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I didn't always feel empowered to speak up for myself or ask for the care and support I needed. Becoming part of a community and hearing other people's experiences helped to change my perspective. That's why my deciding factor is making my voice heard. To hear my story and access other helpful resources, drop by Von Vendi, that's VONVENDI.com/patient-stories.
And we are back, flowing with Charlene. Hi. So we are Flow, straight talk about extreme menstruation. We can start with the extreme. We can start with the menstruation. When was your first experience menstruating?
I was what would be called a late bloomer because all of my friends had their periods and I was like the last one in the group to get theirs. I was on before 12, but close to 12. So that was pretty late for the group I was hanging with. And it was memorable, but not traumatic because I was really looking for it. Like it didn't take me by surprise because I wasn't the first in the group. I was like, where is it already? So yes, I felt like I'd arrived once it got here.
What was it like being kind of the last one in your group of friends? I think we don't talk about that very often when you're like searching for it. So what was that like?
It was just like they'd graduated into another phase and I wanted to be in that phase. Like all the women in my life were in the phase. Like my sisters were there and now my friend group, they were all there and I was just very eager to have the experience. Like I just wanted to know. So like you had I had my, you carry a pad in a in a little purse in my book bag just in case. And that it just stayed there for years.
Oh. Yeah. But you were prepared, so that was good. Like you were ready.
I was on the lookout and ready. Many conversations, like the first inquiries like from mom were like, how are you feeling? Are you having any tummy aches? Like trying to dance around like, how do you start this conversation?
Yeah.
And me not really knowing what she was getting at the time. But then slowly realizing like, oh, that's what those questions were about. But yeah, years later. Yeah.
Well, and so I'm curious, was there conversation around menstruation in general in the home or around sex ed?
There weren't really conversations. It was just observed. Like I knew something happened. I didn't know the exact particulars of what happened. Yeah, it was expected. I was expectant of it. I knew that it was coming one day and was very frustrated that it hadn't arrived yet because it was like, well, everybody else has it. I want it too. FOMO.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Lots of FOMO energy.
I wanted to have braces because my sister had braces. I feel even though it causes a lot of pain.
The things you want as a kid.
Yeah. But so then the menstrual experience
Rich,
you wanted, it
muted.
arrived? Oh.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
So I don't know if it caught any of.
Thank you. Well, this mic did, but I'm so sorry. I thought I was going to help with the echo, but it doesn't even, so I won't do that again.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I could understand what you're saying, but I didn't know for recording, so.
No, of course. Wow, yeah, I wanted braces for the same reason. It's like, my sister's cool. She has braces. And it's like, ow. But so you were like, oh, I want my period. It's cool. Everyone has it. And then it comes an ow or not ow? When did it start becoming extreme?
I was very much a tomboy. And, like junior high school years are nothing memorable other than it was there. But by the time I got to high school, they were very painful and heavy. And I remember like my mom would like prepare hot water bottles and feed me soup that I couldn't keep down. Like I wouldn't be able to keep food down. Like I'd have to miss a couple of days from school. Ibuprofen, overdose on ibuprofen until I went to sleep because that's the way I could bear it. It was like, if I take enough ibuprofen, it'll knock me out and then I won't feel anything.
Wow.
And then like by the second or third day, then the pain would have lightened up and then I could function as a normal person again. And that's kind of how it's been.
Since high school?
Since high school.
Oh,
throughout college. Throughout the my working career. Maybe about, I want to say roughly 10, 12-ish years ago, somewhere in mid there, acupuncture helped a great deal. Mm-hmm. For me, it's a rumor because it's never happened to me. But I hear that there are women who have periods that lasts somewhere between 3 to 4 days. Mm-hmm. That's never been my experience. It's always been a week or more. 10 days was usually my norm. Oh. And when I tried acupuncture, that got it to 7 days and off of ibuprofen.
Wow.
So I have lots of wonderful things to say about acupuncture. Mm-hmm. Of course, results vary across patients, but that was noted. Like I was like, oh, I didn't have to take any drugs, like no drugs this time. I was like, and the duration was less, considerably less, and that's been a relief. Like that kind of has been the norm until last month. Well, I don't even say last month, the last couple of months. My cycle started last week towards the end of April, continued throughout the entire month of May, and came to a trickling end somewhere around the first week and a half of June. So I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get a period. Again, I expect at the end of June is when I'm expecting, because it's been like clockwork. except for this time around. So I'm not quite sure if it's going to make an appearance on time or not. Or if like my cycle is now like, you know, delayed or pushed off course or what. So it's a surprise. It's going to be a surprise.
It's a mystery, but like clockwork, 10 days, how long was your?
No, the cycle is 28 days. When I say regular,
okay.
like every 28 days, like clockwork, it would start.
Wow.
The duration would vary. Like I said, like around 10-ish years ago, like with the acupuncture, it went from 10-ish days, like on the side of like, it could have been 11 or 12, to where acupuncture came in and was like between 7 and 10.
Wow.
Which was, you know, I lost a few days of what most women experience, like their normal period. That was the add-on.
Oh my gosh. At what point, Charlene, do you realize, like, did you realize in high school that this was abnormal? Like this was extreme?
No, because no one talked about it. Like we didn't talk about, like it was just it's part for the course. This is part of being a woman. This is what your body does. And so I didn't know that other people were having lighter flows for 3 to 4 days. I just knew like 3 to 4 days was my intro, where I would just bleed profusely and not be able to leave the house. And then it would be something more manageable where I could interact with life.
Wow.
And did you see any OBGYNs or anyone in the providers in the field that had any commentary on what was going on?
That's what they would tell me, was like, this was par for the course. Like we tried, like they suggested birth control. So I went on the pill for a while, which then put my hormones out of whack for a really long time. It was manageable. It was very regular. And then I would bleed for a week. It was still just not what I would have come to know is normal.
Okay. And so then what led to any sort of diagnosis after a tenure of having this kind of what was your regular cycle?
Okay. So it's layered, right? So like heavy periods, which then led to the discovery of uterine fibroids. So then the side effects, like, oh, well, you have a heavy flow because you have fibroids. I didn't know what that meant. I thought I was going to die. Tumors.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
And then also because of the heavy bleeding, iron deficient anemia.
Of course.
So chronic fatigue, heavy bleeding, long duration. That was my normal. They tried to give me other things to help, but it never did. Like I said, birth control pills kind of helped with scheduling, but it didn't really change much. I was given painkillers, but then that would just, in college especially, like I would just fall asleep in class. It was just so strong. And it was always like very heavy and I would get sedated. And that's how I would get relief from the pain, was just taking enough drugs to make me go to sleep.
Oh, gosh.
And to unpack the symptoms of pain, because pain is such a unique experience for each individual, do you have any descriptive words of where it was centralized or throbbing or consistent without the pain support?
There's just an overall feeling of malaise, sluggishness, and then very localized pain in around my midsection, where when I say pain, it was like more of like a wrenching, like you could feel your inside just sort of twist around each other.
Sure.
And then I was told, well, that's your lining. That's your uterus, the wall of your uterus. It's shedding, and that's what's happening. So it was always an explanation, but there was no relief.
That's a nightmare. And this happened.
Yes.
Let's just call it what it is, right? Like, and the fact it sounds like you were dismissed pretty early on with your physicians.
Yes. And I did the math like just oddly, because like when I think about when I would have to stay home, 1 day, 2 days, day and a half here, a day there, 2 days, every single month, that adds up to a couple of years.
Yeah.
over the course of a lifetime of just missed whatever, life opportunities, just anything.
I just wanted to look up the average years because I know this is a thing. An average, a woman will spend, or a menstruating individual will spend 37.5 years of their life actively menstruating.
2 days a month times 37.
How did that impact? So I think let's start it like in high school when you started menstruating. How did that impact you missing school so much first? And how did it academically? What about in regards to your friendships? Did your friends know what was going on? Did you talk about that?
Oh gosh, we never talked about it. It was never talked about.
Okay.
Like that was just something that you kept yourself. Like handle your business. We all go through this and this is how it is. I do remember like feeling really lucky if my first couple of days were on a weekend because it didn't interrupt the week.
Yeah.
So I didn't always have to miss class.
Okay.
But when I did. I remember there were some times that I would have to leave school early because you flow right through the clothes.
Yep.
And then that means I've got to get on a train in New York City, get home.
Oof.
Just all of it. And always trying to, do I have a denim jacket that I can tie around my waist? Or do I have, like, what is it? Something. There would always be something. I have to walk a little awkward.
Yeah.
Just to get home.
Yeah. Something always to conceal. Like, no one can see this. We're not talking about it. You're being dismissed by your physicians. Sounds like I imagine that to be pretty lonely.
Well, yeah, but just always told that that's what it is. This is the deal. You're a woman or you're a young woman, and this is part of it. This part of the deal, the package deal. This is how it goes every single month.
So then, in what led to the uterine fibroid diagnosis, what kind of providers were you working with? What was your relationship with those providers when that diagnosis showed up? Did you have a level of trust? Did you feel like they were supportive, or
It was a relatively new doctor. I was just trying to address the heavy bleeding issue. Like, what can I do to alleviate this? And just a regular exam. And then there were, you have this mass here. It's about the size of an orange. That explains it. That's why you're bleeding so heavily. You've got fibroids. But there was no attempt to address the bleeding. It was just like, you've got fibroids, so you're going to bleed heavily.
Okay. So it was no treatment plan offered or options looked at?
No, outside of, we can try birth control, see how that works.
Right.
Then I don't want to get the name of the drugs wrong, but I think it was Anaprox.
I've never heard of that one.
Anaprox? Naproxen is ibuprofen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Anaprox is related. But yeah, we can.
It was just one of those, I had to get it from my doctor. I had to go to the doctor to get the really strong dosage. And that's what it was. Like, so I was kind of, for that week out of the month, foggy in the brain and resting as much as I could, forcing myself to go to class, but not really being able to participate fully because I'm, nursing a wound, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's where my attention, my energy is going, is just to alleviate all of it. Just all of it, just managing, like if there's the pain, there's the wrenching, there's the cramping, and then there's the actual blood flow that needs to be managed and concealed. Don't tell anybody, just take care of it, be invisible, don't talk about it. People think it's gross. It's just taboo. We don't talk about it. I don't know, like the other women in my life, I don't know that they understood, just like I don't understand women with 3-day periods.
Sure.
They had no concept. It was just like, well, what's the big deal? Like, I look at like the little tampons, like the little regular tampons are like this size. It's like, what good is that? Like, it's not gonna.
It's like a Q-tip.
Do anything.
It's like a Q-tip.
So just all of that, just like not having just the things that were available, just not have them work. They were just inadequate. It was always inadequate. Always had to do something extra. Just a lot of work.
And in the timeline of this, how long have you had from that diagnosis to now to be on this journey?
Oh, goodness. Well, without aging myself too much.
Sure. And just in the medical journey sense, we can do
Yeah.
an approximate, or I guess I'm trying to sense of, you're saying there wasn't much. There's so much more conversation now than even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this was not recently. Enough time ago,
A few decades have gone by. Yes, you can thank my parents for my appearance being considerably younger. I appear younger than I actually am, but thank you, Mom.
I mean,
and
Dad. we don't youth chase here.
Nope.
We think all ages are amazing, but it is astonishing to think you've had a diagnosis for 2 decades. That seems like too long to have been menstruating. Okay, so then with how it was then, with the minimal conversations around what to do with this diagnosis, how did you find new ways to help heal and manage the symptoms?
Just exploratory. It's like necessity is the mother of invention. So I have this need. It's not going away. So it is now up to me to figure out how to make this bearable for myself. And again, I guess it was you said it must be lonely.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm realizing like people really don't have any concept of what it's like. Even other women. I have no idea what another woman's menstrual cycle is.
Sure. That makes sense.
So there was a sense of suck it up, you big baby. We're all going through it.
Which there's a survival instinct. I look to the older generations that had to survive without support and community. And the difference now is with the amplification of the value of conversing, that we all are realizing let's talk more. We're noticing the vacuum of conversation that's happened generationally. We know it's valuable to speak about it, because I can't understand your experience of fibroids, but I have now heard so many different stories of different fibroid experiences that I am in a unique position, Sarah, as well, right? To correlate those and notice some similarities. And dare I say, that's what our medical science research areas should be doing with menstrual health, is figuring out where those similarities are so we can find successful treatment options that incorporate holistic care. And I'll get off my soapbox now. But
please.
Now I was like,
carry on.
Stay on it. I love it when you're up there.
Okay.
It's my fave. My favorite.
Doing it for us all.
Yes.
But so you did find some success. You found whatever could help. Can you share a little bit about what you use now to support?
Oh, goodness. Yes. Cannabis helps me a great deal. Cannabis helps me a huge deal. It's controversial in that I think it's been so stigmatized over the years, and how it's been perceived. When I say cannabis, what comes to mind? What do you see when I say I use cannabis for treatment? What do you imagine?
I mean, me personally, I'm a big proponent of cannabis for treatment for healing. So I imagine different tinctures and oils that can be used in a myriad of ways, depending on where the source of pain is, knowing that cannabis can provide a lot of support.
Lovely. So that's great, and that is accurate. But most people think
Oh, getting
high in the backyard. They think you're getting
high on the slide.
Yeah. Like I'm just got my pen or your
It's
joint.
just my meds. It's just my meds. I'm medicating. But tinctures are great. There's also even a more potent variation, which is cannabis oil. It's like the extract. So it's like very thick, like molasses, very potent, but it is so incredibly helpful. And then, I mean, I don't want to take the conversation too far off the rails, but there was a time when I was searching and I ended up in Northern California on cannabis farms.
Nice.
And so I was juicing cannabis leaves. And that's
like
also
wheatgrass.
like wheatgrass. Yep. And the thing is about when it's raw, in its raw form, it's not psychotropic. It's like an energy drink. It's like that. It's like the wheatgrass. You just get like a nice little lift, but you're not stoned. You're just energized.
Wow.
So that's something that I look forward to. But the laws, even in California, don't really allow me to grow the amount of cannabis that I would need to have it, like just have
enough
my shot of cannabis juice every day. So those are the things that I'm fighting for, working against, trying to gain access to. So cannabis has been a lifesaver, a game changer, just so many benefits to the plant, like this benevolent plant that has never hurt anybody.
Nope.
All the hubbub about it and the restrictions around it is just quite frustrating.
Yes.
So that's something else that I'm being forced to fight for amidst all of the challenges.
Yeah, people dose with Lexapro. Should be able to dose with whatever it is that helps.
Love my Cymbalta, as we know. Like we've talked about that, but I do love some THC too. I think it's very helpful for pain management. And I think too, Charlene, we also talk to a lot of people with bleeding disorders, and it's very much used in the community because people don't want to be taking these heavy pain meds that are addictive in quality that can cause other problems, right? So
and the severe pain of joint bleeds that happens. Yeah, within the community, pain management is a huge component for sure.
So, we are team cannabis over here for sure.
There's that, and doing whatever I can to reduce stress.
Yes.
I've found like a lot of corporate working environments to be quite toxic and not helpful for the time being. And if I have a say, I'm never going back. Like I would avoid that at all costs for myself. Yeah. But that's been helpful. It's just being out of that environment that seems to breed illness.
Do you still use acupuncture? Is that something you're also still utilizing, or not too much?
Not so much these days. Last year, I did go back in for a few months. It'd been years since I'd gone back, but I was like, I think I'd want to go in for another try and see how it goes. And it was okay. It wasn't as drastic, the improvement. It was helpful, but it helped with other things. It didn't really, I think it had run its course. It had helped me, but it didn't fine tune it as far as like pain and blood flow and so on. Okay. It didn't change anything more.
So we also, I kind of switching gears in regards to that is the bleeding disorders community often has stories, which I think you have one, about losing insurance and how losing your medical insurance can be detrimental. In fact, there's a family in Michigan. I know that a father had switched jobs a handful of times because they were maxed out because the treatment for bleeding disorders is so expensive. And that always sticks with me, and seeing my friends' bills for $1 million for the year. And so can you share a little bit what it's been like in regards to navigating our health system here in America?
Yeah, I'm developing a very I don't know if I want to call myself warped sense of humor, but dark and dry.
I like it.
And I call it a health scare system because it doesn't seem to be helping me at all, but they definitely go out of their way to scare the bejesus out of everybody.
Sure.
I had my fibroids removed. It was around the Y2K scare. So I remember like the winter of Y2K. And it's like, there was a concern about, well, what if all the machines stop working in the hospital?
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's when I had a myomectomy, had the fibroids removed. And thought it was done. Moved on with my life. I'm a New Yorker, so I was living in New York at the time. This is before I came out to Los Angeles to chase dreams. And, like maybe 5 or 6 years in, they resurfaced. And the initial advice is, let's watch and wait, which I'd done before. And so you watch and wait. A couple years go by, you're observing. And it's like, oh, well, now they're so large, we need to schedule another surgery. By this time, it's 2008. I was working in banking. I was in the compliance department, very corporate, very white collar. But I wasn't like the head of the department. I was support. I had other dreams I was chasing, but this was the one that was paying the bills. And they were annoyed with me because I would have to take days off every month or every other month. Like if my cycle started on the weekend, then it didn't disrupt my work week. But if it started midweek, then I was disrupted and I would have to not go into work. And they did not understand why I was calling in sick so much. And I didn't think it was any of their business. It wasn't anything that I could do about it. So 2008, when the opportunity came about for them to find a reason to let me go, they did. And with that went my insurance. As we were scheduling or figuring out when we wanted to schedule, and also considering work, right? It's like, well, when would be a good time for me to get away? And in the middle of all of that, it was like, I don't have a job anymore. My insurance would have run out by the time the surgery would have come about. There was no way I was going to afford COBRA on what I was making and then now no longer making. And it just got worse from there. There were no jobs to be had. Like jobs were disappearing. So no one was really hiring anybody. So like 5 years went by. And then the laws changed. And then I was able to access healthcare again. But then by that time, the fibroids were so large. They're like, oh, well, the only thing we can recommend is hysterectomy. That's it.
Oh, gosh.
I was enraged.
Yeah, absolutely.
By that, because it wasn't like I wasn't trying to address my issue.
Right.
I was just being denied over and over again. Oh, yeah, well, come in for the exam. You know what? You've got fibroids. Yeah, I know. Like, I need to take care.
Get them out.
Oh, well, you don't have insurance. So there's really not much we can do here. But they're benign. So, you're not at risk for death or anything. And it was just that kind of cut and dry.
Yeah.
And when I was able to access healthcare again, 2013, that would have been it. That's what they were offering.
A hysterectomy.
A hysterectomy.
Oh my gosh.
The lag
I
time.
haven't had a hysterectomy. I've been holding on because I really believe, I feel we need our uteruses. Like just because it won't produce or has not produced a child, it has not incubated a child. It's like, oh, you're not going to have kids. You don't need a uterus. What do you mean? It's like it's only good if I'm going to produce a child, but if not, then I don't need it. I have hormones that need regulating that beg to differ. The bone density as we age begs to differ.
Truth. Yes.
The number of things that women tell me they experience after they have a hysterectomy that they weren't warned about.
Yeah.
That the doctors didn't feel necessary to tell them beforehand.
Yep.
All of that begs to differ.
Yes.
So I'm managing my fibroids. It's awkward. The bleeding is awful, but I know how to handle that. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
But all that, the mystery of what comes on the other side of a hysterectomy, that frightens me more. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people should never have a hysterectomy. For some people that's the right decision and it's necessary, but that's not me and that's not my case.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel fortunate. As much as I'm gonna bitch and moan about it, I feel fortunate that I can see this out, that I can try this uncharted avenue and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I've been having some success amidst the biggest challenge I have is access to cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the time that I was up in the hills of Northern California, having my cannabis juice and my cannabis oil and everything else that I could like put together, I had significant loss in the size of my fibroids, like MRI results that showed degenerating tumors.
Wow. Amazing.
But I don't have consistent access. So I'm just
yeah.
on this crazy seesaw. Like, okay, well, I lose some of this and then I gain it back. Because like if you don't wipe it out, then the cells are still mutated. They're still multiplying. Like if I'm not steady, somehow cannabis medicine is not taken seriously. Like we can't dose regularly.
Right.
Like if we miss a dose, oh, it's no big deal. It's only cannabis. Well, that's my medicine.
Yeah.
Tell someone that's taking what is it? Insulin, or what is the other thing for blood clots, like warfarin?
Yeah.
Miss your dose. See what happens.
Right.
You know, there's not this casual. No, you get your dose. You're diagnosed, and this is what you take to remedy your situation. And somehow, because I'm choosing to heal with cannabis, well, it's not really medicine. You don't really need it. I don't really need cannabis. I don't really need my uterus. Like what?
Right.
Just all the things that I want.
Yeah.
All the things that my quality of life. Oh, you don't need that. Not necessary.
Oh, your autonomy, your agency. You don't need that.
Crazy thoughts.
I mean, we know it's because of the extensive propaganda against plant medicine that's been going on in America. We also know that cannabis has shown to help with seizure symptoms for those who experience other many illnesses. Things. Yeah, because we could carry on to the war on drugs, but to keep us on menstruation, I'm curious with we're very fortunate to have a microphone to share with you, to have you putting out there what a lot of women struggling with dismissal need to hear, which is your calm, cool, and steady insight into how to stay humorously coping with dismissal, with the lack of support. Is there anything you'd share with others who might currently lack your confidence about how to stand tall in what they know is right for their bodies?
Goodness, I don't know if I can give advice. I can tell you what I've done, and it's always been in the moment, on the fly, because I know not all doctors are this way. But there are a lot. There's so many. Where if I dare to question, just out of curiosity even, the abuse that comes back, their authoritative, you do as I say or else attitude of it.
Yeah.
I've had some doctors either laugh in my face. I've had other doctors tell me that I needed to get mental help because what he said was, are you afraid to give up your uterus because you won't feel like a woman anymore because your uterus is broken? I've had another doctor tell me that my uterus, due to my fibroids, it's like, you ever see one of those large, hefty garbage bags? And you know, like when you stuff it and it gets bent out of shape? Well, your uterus is like that hefty garbage bag that's bent out of shape.
I'll bend you out of shape, doctor. Get out of here. That's
seriously what?
I can go on. I've had, while you're on the table in the stirrups and their fingers are inserted, decide to say all manner of things when you're in that vulnerable position and can't really fight. I was thinking about having an argument.
Right. When the doctor's hand is up in your vagina. Yeah. So
I don't know that I have advice. I think instinctively we all have an inner knowing of what's right for us in the moments that we're in. And if what they're saying isn't resonating with you and how you feel about it, like, I'm an expert on me. Yes. You may be a doctor and an expert in your field, but I've been with me my entire life, and I can tell you what's working for me, what's not working for me. I can speak. I have language. I can communicate with you, and I'm looking to partner with my doctor. I'm not looking for an adversary.
Yes.
But I often find myself in these adversarial confrontations with the very people that I'm going to for help.
Yeah.
That is frustrating. It is unfair. And it's just a matter of being able to stand on what you know about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And don't let other people tell you how you should feel, what you ought to feel. You're an individual, unique. We're all unique.
Yes.
And so the solution is going to be as nuanced as we are. Mm-hmm. And we need to allow for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Big round of applause. We actually add like SFX. The whole crowd goes wild. Yeah. That was beautiful. Yeah. It's wonderful to be alongside, crossing paths with your advocacy work. Again, not a path you chose, but you're leading the way. Right. I hope we get to support however we can. I know you might have a podcast in the work yourself coming out. We can include any links in the show notes to that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I mean, as far as my podcast, it's dormant. I started a podcast a couple of years ago and just got overwhelmed by the process. And also, I mean, you know, my temper, like, it's just angry. It's like, why am I in the position where I have to fight right now when I should be resting and just focusing on healing?
Right.
Like, why is that? So I just stopped showing up for the podcast, but I am having conversations. Like, I had a conversation with a group of women and just sharing my experience, and they had so many questions. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was doing such a good thing. And that's been a lot. That's gone a long way in reminding me and encouraging me to pick my podcast back up, because there is strength in community. Mm-hmm. And I could use the support. Like, I'm operating individually, like right now, like all of this is, I'm thinking it up, I'm following through or not, or letting it fall to the wayside. Right. And just having a sense of community helps me keep going and pushing forward. And it's like, hey, this works. I think a lot of, you know, like how we all breathe, but we don't ever talk about breathing, but we need to do it to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it's feels like some of the lessons that I learned about like my healing and what's required and what's necessary. I learned those lessons, I internalized those lessons, and then it feels like I've now taken it for granted that just because I know it, everybody knows it, and I really need to share. And that's the part that I'm reminded over and over again, the sharing has worth and value and is so necessary, because statistic about fibroids, which more often than not comes with the side effect of abnormal menstrual cycles. Mm-hmm. Oh goodness, I can look it up. Went off on a tangent and forgot and lost my way.
No, take your time.
Statistic about fibroids.
Thank you. 80%. I want to say that's the number of women by the time we reach the age of 50 have experienced fibroids or dealing with fibroids in some way, shape, or form.
That's the officeonwomenshealth.gov. Yep.
80% of women, so half of the population, 80% of half of the population, that is like billions of uteruses that need some guidance, protection, healing.
Knowledge share.
I mean, I just in my own little circle of people, I can think of a handful of my girlfriends and or clients who have fibroids, and it impacts their relationship.
It impacts everything.
Yep.
And you don't know what to say or how to say it, because how do you relate? Like, how do you explain what is happening so deep inside of you? Like, you can't explain it. And then a lot of people think the conversation is unsavory. Like, they don't want to talk about it. It's taboo to talk about it, or it's not polite, or, oh, are you going on again? And it's like, yeah, because I have to exist in this world, and to the point where I'm not even allowed to say that I'm going through this thing that is part of my life. What I'm told to do is cover it up, mask it, and make sure that no one knows, because it'll make them feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Disregard all of my discomfort and my need for care, I need to lay down. Yeah. I need to go get under the covers and just let my body be. That's what I need. But we're not allowed to do that. Right. The first question is, well, what are you going to do for work? Can I heal first?
Right.
Am I allowed to heal first? Am I allowed to take the time to heal before we talk about what am I going to do for work or what am I going to do about work?
Well, and that
it's
first
constant.
layer of just being allowed to talk about it. Allowed. Yes. We don't need permission, but that sense of like it ought be first and foremost covered. Versus announced. I say this like if men menstruated, it'd be like, bro, I'm on day 5. And they'd be like, it's metal as fuck, dude. But with women, it's like, oh my gosh, you're on your period? Shh, don't talk about it. Here's some cotton wrapped in pink. Just remember, you suck. Like, there's no amount of like, what? You're fucking letting blood come out of you? That's so badass.
Right.
And running board meetings and strategizing while all of that's happening.
And then being like, oh, you gotta stay home today? That makes sense. Like, that should be like that. You're bleeding that much? Whoa.
Let me send you something.
Stay home. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
It could be that way.
It could be. Right. We got to keep advocating. Right.
We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to speak it into existence.
Hell yes.
Yes. And that's why we are going to keep flowing. Charlene, we're so grateful for you flowing with us. I feel like there will be many more conversations. You're on the pioneer forefront of letting new healing modalities come into the clinical space.
Oh, wow.
I look forward to hearing how your journey continues. I hope it brings more comfort and peace along the way, always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to add before we flow on?
I'm so glad and honored that you invited me on to share what I could, or share what I can. So thank you. Thank you for holding the space, having the space, because this is very necessary, very valid.
Here for it. That's why we do it, and we will see you. Yes. And we will see you next month on Flow. Flow is produced by Bloodstream Media. Big shout out to our creative director, Amy Board, and our editor, Kay Vermeil. New episodes of Flow will be available the second Thursday of every month.
Hey, that's the day after I start menstruating.
And thanks to our sponsor, Takeda, for their support of Flow.